Welcome back to the Road to National series. In today's episode, I'm going to take you through a lower workout. So usually this will be a lower dynamic workout. However, if you saw my last video, I was away seeing family and I knew I wasn't going to be able to do my normal dynamic training. So I've just been doing general upper and lower sessions. So here I decided to start just with some safety squat bar front squats. I've never done these before. I wanted to try them out and I loved them. They were amazing. I did 2 triples at 140 kilos. And the only issue is as I come to unrack here, like it bends you back loads. It's quite hard to get into the starting position. And I imagine at heavier weights, that would be more of an issue. However, they felt fantastic and it felt like it targeted the quads more than any other squat variation without really involving the back at all. There wasn't much hip or back extension, so that's why I did it beltless so easily, and I definitely think I'll do more of those going forward. So the next accessory here was weighted hip extensions using the new bar that I've got. So this is the second time I've ever done these. Last time I did 80 kilos. This time I did 120 kilos for 2 sets of 5 and I came to a dead stop at the floor to mimic a deadlift a bit more and because the weight was really heavy. So this is about the heaviest that I'll go. They were very challenging for me. I think in future I found 80 kilos pretty light. I'll probably go around 100 kilos for normal working sets and then maybe build up to like 120 to 150 kilos for that style of hip extension that you just saw there where I'm pulling it off the ground. It is quite good to do that as a variation as well. It is more like a deadlift when you're pulling off the floor. You don't have the stretch reflex and it's overcoming inertia, overcoming that static point on the floor where you actually have to explode up and accelerate the weight up to get it up. So they felt great. Then moving on to the next accessory here, I did single leg quad extensions. So I went heavy with these as well at 80 pounds. That's the heaviest I've ever gone on single leg quad extensions. I think I got them for sets of 6 last time. And this time I managed to get 2 sets of 8 per leg. So the second set was definitely sort of challenging for the right leg. For those who don't know, I've worked through a right knee injury throughout this entire series and for the last couple of years of my life, and it's feeling so much better. This is the heaviest I've been able to go, like basically pain-free on that right leg, but it definitely was struggling. You'll see it was hard to lock out the weight and it's just not as smooth as the left leg is. It's not quite as strong yet, but that is to be expected, and I was still very happy with the progress I've made on these. That right knee as well, it was feeling a tiny bit tender after the second set, but the first set is the first time I've been able to like go in. I did a small warm-up with some lighter weights off camera because that's not really interesting for you to see. But even with that, usually I do have some level of discomfort or stiffness in my right knee, and I didn't at all this time. So I was really happy about that. Then moving on to the next accessory here, it was calf raises, and I did these off an elevated block at 140 kilos, which isn't too heavy for me. I've done like 200 kilos off the elevated block, and I managed to get a set of 15 on this first set, which was massively grindy. It was hard for me to do. I think a set of 15 is the highest I've ever done with like 150 kilos before, so it was only slightly lighter. I did have some unracking issues there, which I was not happy about. As you can see, it made my heart lurch a bit when I thought I was going to fall over to the side. And on this second set, I was only able to get a set of 12, I think because I burned out so much on the first set. So the calves slightly off their optimal strength, but I'm thinking of dropping the weight down with the calves in general and starting to do higher rep work, just because I enjoy doing that as well. I've done a lot of low rep work, and really the whole principle of the conjugate system is to vary rep ranges. So at the end of that second set as well, look, I took extra care to make sure that the bar was properly racked and that I wasn't going to fall over. So I was still happy with those calf raises, and moving on to the next accessory here, it was hip abduction. So I was doing these cable abductions. I managed to get a set of 15 on each side at 30 pounds. So these moved very smoothly. The pulley of my system worked much better at this weight. this like cable pulley, it's pretty good, but you have to pull basically directly in line straight forward in order for it to be smooth, and at heavier weights that becomes harder and harder to do. So even at 40 pounds for me, that is a massive increase in weight. Obviously it's adding a third of the weight of this, even though it's only one jump up on the weight stack, so that is much heavier and more challenging for me. And I have done 50 pounds before, but that was ridiculously heavy. So I was happy with these sets of 15 at 30 pounds, and it just felt much smoother, pumped up the adductors, and that's also why I only did one set per side, because even my standing leg got massively pumped. Normally I'd do 2 sets, but it was actually hitting both abductors when I was doing each set, because the standing leg was having to push outwards against the floor. So the final accessory here was a miscellaneous lower exercise, but I've realized I probably need to work on my grip a bit for deadlifts. I recently did a 300 kilo block pull, and I did them with straps, but it was a bit of a grind, and I realized if I was just using my normal grip strength, I might not have been able to hold onto the bar and keep grinding that long. So grip hasn't been an issue for me in the past, but I just don't want it to be, and a lot of high level lifters find it is, so it's probably better for me to get on top of that now and start training it. So I did this Captain of Crush 2 for 2 sets of 10 per hand. On the second sets here, I was not able to actually fully crush the gripper. The whole point is, you'll see I can move it up into the starting position. It's about actually the peak contraction and getting the 2 handles to touch, but for the last couple of reps I wasn't able to on the second set, but it doesn't matter. It was still training the grip well. And then I decided to also superset it with just this bodyweight hang, a bit of an isometric, because I just felt like I could do a little bit more grip work, and the hands, when you're training like the gripper, often you feel like you have more energy, but you can't quite close any more grippers. So doing an isometric like this to burn all the way out is a nice thing to do as well. So that is it for today's video. I hope you did in fact enjoy the video. If you did, drop it a like, drop it a comment, subscribe, click the bell, all that good stuff, and I hope you have a great day.